Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel, Here There Be Stories. In today's video, I'm going to be going over my May wrap up. For the month of May, I read a total of 7 books and had a total of 6 DNFs. So let's just jump right into it. All right, first up in the DNF list is Old God's Time by Sebastian Barry, Sanctuary of Shadow by Aurora Asher, The Hand on the Wall by Maureen Johnson, which is book 3 in the Truly Devious series. A Gunslinger Girl by Lindsay Eli and James Patterson. This one was such a disappointment. First off, the cover is gorgeous and the cover drew me in. But the premise was something I had never come across before. I can't remember. It's like a Western fantasy, but like set in this world. But it was actually, the reason I DNF'd this one is because it was written in middle grade style and the writing was not good. And the dialogue between the characters was very juvenile. Like there was nothing concrete. There was no substance. There was nothing to keep you attached to anybody. So I didn't get very far in this before I just nixed it. DNF number 5 is 5 Total Strangers by Nat Richards. Last one is The Starless Crown by James Rollins. Now this one is a soft DNF for me because I actually liked it, but this is an epic fantasy and I cannot listen to an epic fantasy on audio. So I'm going to soft DNF this until I can get to this in the physical format. There was a lot going on in this, y'all. The story, I mean, there were dinosaurs running around at some point, like briefly, and then it just disappeared. They weren't mentioned again. In all kinds of other fantasy elements, and I was like, did they just mention dinosaurs and then just breeze by? Like, what? It was pretty busy. It was pretty busy, but it was cohesive enough. And see, here's the thing with cohesiveness: the writing and the storyline, and there's so many multiple point of views as well. Like, it's like, oh my God, you got to keep track of who and what and where and why. And it was just so much, but it was cohesive enough that it was like sticking. It was like enough to stick to you. Okay. So I was like, okay, I think I'm going to try this in the physical format. And I think I'll get along or get on with it a lot better. Now on to the reads. I completed 7, all on audiobook for the month of May. Gwendy's Button Box by Stephen King. This is a sci-fi / thriller. I don't read Stephen King. He is just not my cup of tea. However, this one caught my eye because of the name, and the premise sounded more like fantastical and more on the thriller side than a horror, because Stephen King primarily writes horror. I am into thrillers. I love me a good thriller and suspense. This is also a novella, so I figured it's a novella. It's short. This takes place in Castle Rock, Maine in the summer of 1974. We are first introduced to our main character, Gwendy, when she is 12 years old. She is running up what is called the suicide stairs. When she reaches the top, she then meets a fellow with a bowler hat sitting on a bench who presents to her a button box to have and to hold in her safekeeping until further notice. Now, when I heard the term button box, I had no idea what that meant. The first thing that came to my mind was like an old granny. Like an old granny who has a sewing kit with buttons in it. I was like, is this like a killer granny? No one would suspect. Who's gonna suspect a killer granny? First off, I don't know if that has been written. I haven't heard of a story where we have killer grannies on the loose. This button box, okay, let me try and explain this. It's a box with buttons, clearly, obviously, but all the buttons have different colors, and some of the buttons represent places in the world. If you were to press one of these buttons, like I think the black or the red, I'm pretty sure it's the red button. Don't touch the red button. It's always red, isn't it? Something bad would happen regardless, but all the places that whatever the colors were that matched the places that they represented, an event would take place. But this box, you know, like it gives her, she hits certain buttons and it gives her chocolate, and it like satiates your hunger It has silver dollars in it. So, and there's consequences to the things that happen with this box. So in my head, when the description was given to me when I was reading this story or listening to this story, I automatically thought like there was, I don't know what it was, but back in the day, there was this toy and it had buttons, different colored buttons and levers on it. I'm not sure, it could have been like one of those toy cashier boxes. It was kind of like a typewriter in the way it looked, but there were levers, like if it was like a lottery or a cashier machine, it would like ding, but it had all these colored buttons and levers on it. And that's the first thing I thought of when it was described to me. I gave this 4 stars. I didn't give it a full 5 because of the writing style. The writing style of this, now because this is a novella, I was able to like deal with it because I mean it's quick, it's short, but the writing style is like narrating, okay? It is, you're not really getting her thoughts and her point of view. It's more like an outside narrator telling you a story. But that is why it didn't get past 4 stars. But the actual story itself, the storyline and the things that take place, and the guy with the bowler hat, I think his name's Ferris something, I forgot his entire name, but I just thought the whole storyline was great. So, which leads into the next one, which would be the music room, which the music room was at the end, a bonus story at the end of Gwendy's Button Box. Basically, this is like a mental horror short story. Apparently, this was inspired by paintings done by Edward Hopper. I don't dig it. I don't dig the style. I don't dig the style at all. It's like it captures people in like the 1940s, 50s type era, in like the city, in homes, like that kind of style. It's like kind of the equivalent of like Norman Rockwell. This is kind of similar to that. When I listen to this short story, it's like watching a short film by Hitchcock. That's all I can tell you. I thought it was great. If you say Hitchcock, I'm there. I mean, I grew up watching Hitchcock movies with my dad, so anything with Hitchcock is like. Next up is Assassin of Reality by Marina Diachenko. Now this is the sequel to Vita Nostra. This one is more dark academia and a sci-fi mix, whereas Vita Nostra is like the first half of that book is fantasy and then the second half is completely sci-fi. Now because this is book 2, I'm not going to get totally into the details of this because it will spoil it. I mean, I didn't like this. I gave it 2 stars. First one, Vita Nostra is one of my favorite books of all time. I've mentioned it several times on my channel. This one just falls flat for me. We are following our main character Sasha again in this. She is now using grammar for magic, and there are time loops. That's all I can really tell you. Now, time loops are not my thing because they're very confusing. And it was very confusing. It's hard to follow, and the whole thing is just, it's just like a rigmarole. And again, with this, I didn't think it was cohesive enough to like be able to stick with as you're going through all of the just loopiness of it, okay? Now, it's supposed to be a mind bender in general. Like, Vita Nostra is a mind bender. This is supposed to be so it's just trying to follow the first one in that regard. All the events that took place in this, I did not think matched the storyline for our main character. A lot of things just didn't make sense. And at the end, you're still left with like, what the just happened, with no real satisfying anything. It's just not satisfying. So 2 stars. Book number 4 was The Bird Box by Josh Malerman. This is a thriller sci-fi. This is like a sci-fi thrilling dystopian story, okay? I mean, in this story, you can't go outside without being blindfolded. One day, out of the blue, there are reports of people seeing things and turning violent and then killing themselves. Our main character, Mallory, is living with her sister at the time when these events start to take place. And oh, she also finds out she's pregnant and alone. Joy. Joy. Kind of fast forward a little bit, she then ends up with some people in a house whom they only go outside when they need to search for food or go out back to the water or to the well to get water. Blindfolded. Everything has to be blindfolded, and when they're out there, sometimes you just, sometimes you also feel something touch you as well. Okay, I think it was silent. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, when you're out there you don't hear anything. Everything is based on like, not for like senses, like touch and like sensing it. Sound, I don't remember. I remember later on sound being a part of it, like you could hear them, but I'm not sure if I remember correctly if at the beginning they made sound. They would just brush up against you, like you could feel things. It's like, what the blindfolded. Some of the things in here were legit hard to read because of what's happening in the world and her circumstance. It was hard to read the thoughts that she was having as a mom. And justifying them and almost acting out on them. I was like, if you act out on this thought, I am going to lose my ever-loving just the fact that the thoughts were there and considered, and also like implanted by another person of the group that she was with. There was a lot of craziness. There was a lot of craziness in this. Okay, just fair warning. I did not like the ending. I did not like the ending. The ending is completely, you don't get what you need answer-wise. And it's left open. It's not satisfying for me. Some people may like that. In this, like, it only works for me in certain situations. It did not work for me in this case. Like, I needed to know things and I did not know what I needed to know. However, the story was so engaging. I still gave it a 4.5. I gave it 4.5 stars. The only reason it didn't get 5 stars is for the reason I just mentioned. But the story itself is engaging. It kept me hooked. It wasn't like I was on the seat, like flying by the seat of my pants and I was like on the edge, but it kept me entertained. I was not slumpy in this. Like, I wanted to know what was going to happen next. Like, but that was the problem. It's like, I wanted to know the answers. Like, I wanted to get to what I wanted to know. So it was very entertaining. Now, I have not seen the movie for this, and I know that a lot of people have watched the movie first and then have read the book. And I heard about the movie first years ago when it was a big thing, because it was like a super big deal years ago. And then I found out that it was a book. But after reading this, I'm not sure I'm interested in watching that movie. The only way I would watch that is if someone were to tell me that they were completely different. If someone told me that, hey, the movie and the book are completely different and I think you should give the movie a go if you weren't satisfied with the book, then I would consider it. But if they're like, I don't need to watch the movie. I got the movie in this book, okay? Next is This Might Hurt by Stephanie Roble. I will say this is a cult book. Now, this is more of a book about trauma. It's surrounding trauma. There's a lot of talk, and even in the cult, which I'll get into like the premise and a little bit of a review here in a second. What makes this a little bit different, this cult story a little bit different, is the fact trauma is like addressed and the people in the cult are actually doing trauma-like exercises. I've read several other cult stories that had nothing to do with that, so that was interesting to me. Some of the summaries for this author's other books, it seems like that is her like niche, is that she tends to write books on trauma that are trauma based, so just know that going into it. In this, we actually have 3 points of views, but we're mainly in the point of view of 2 sisters, Natalie and Kit. The third narrator slash point of view, we don't really know who that is until about like halfway through the book. This is basically a typical cult story other than what I mentioned before, and our cult leader in this happens to be a woman as well, which I found different. I haven't read a cult story where our leader was a female. This cult is called Wisewood, which is set on a private island off the coast of Maine. After Natalie and Kit's mother's passing. So their mother has died. Natalie does not hear from Kit after she goes off grid with this cult, because that's a part of the deal. You join the cult, you go off grid for 6 months. There's no cell phones. There's nothing. I mean, there are rules about outside contact for 6 months. One day, Natalie receives a threatening email from a Wisewood account, and everything ensues from there. I gave it 4 stars simply because it was very engaging. It kept me entertained, but I needed. So, 4 stars. Book number 6 and 7, last up, is Truly Devious and the Vanishing Stair. This is book 1 and book 2 in the Truly Devious series by Maureen Johnson. This is a dark academia mystery series. Truly Devious, book 1, I gave 4 stars, and Vanishing Stairs, I gave 3 stars. Truly Devious, I actually enjoyed. We are following our main character, Stevie Bell. She is attending Ellingham Academy. Now, Ellingham Academy accepts students who have certain talents or abilities, set requirements to get into this place. You basically apply saying what your unique niche is, and they'll pretty much accept you. It's done in a way where you can work at your own pace. So if you are different or unique in any way, outside of the normal realm of people, you would be accepted to Ellingham Academy. I would be accepted to Ellingham Academy. So I felt seen immediately. I was like, okay, this is somewhere I would go, because I am very much different from everybody else. So if this is the place that is accepting of people who are different, I belong there. Finally, somewhere I belong. Ellingham Academy. Steve, for example, our main character, gets accepted there because she is a teenage true crime aficionado, which makes her like a naturally good Nancy Drew. She's a detective, essentially. Like, she has that type of brain. Oh, good. You're accepted. Right? Now, Ellingham Academy, I don't remember the time frame, but it's been around for a really long time. The guy who opened the school, who was the owner, I believe it was his wife and his daughter that were murdered not too long after he opened the school. Stevie is basically has her sights set on solving the crime, but also not only does she have her sights set on solving the Ellingham Academy case, another event takes place with people in her inner circle that now the 2 cases have now interwoven together. So if you like puzzles and games, a murder mystery with like a whodunit plot with riddles, and quirky teens that are written well, because this is a YA dark academia mystery series, then you will like this. Only thing that I didn't like in the actual storyline was that it was like this insta lust attraction that she had with one of her roommates. It was just, that's all it was. There was no connection. It didn't make sense other than hormones and trying to escape when she was angry or frustrated, and they were just kind of almost trauma bonding, almost. Not insta love. People are going to call it insta love because that's like the typical trope, but it's not. I call it for what it is. It's not love. It's like an insta lust attraction, because you're there, I'm here, and I need to escape, so to speak. I didn't like that. I didn't like him. It's not, I don't like that in general, obviously, but I didn't like him as a character. He annoyed the ever-loving daylights out of me, and I was just like, why? Why? I gave that 4 stars because, I mean, it was intriguing. The whole storyline was intriguing. Now, this book 2, Vanishing Stair, I gave 3 stars. And of course, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, I DNF'd the 3rd book. The reason being is the writing style. Book 2, the writing style just started going downhill. The writing style is very telly, not showy. There's zero like emotional affect. It's like void. It's just like robotic. And you've heard me just complain about it before. That is, no, we are not robots. And if you cannot have emotional inflection and zero emotional anything, it's like, wow. That's what I say. It's like freaking the guy, the Owen Wilson. I just hear, he just pops in my head going, wow. No, it's a solid pass. It's just listen to a bunch of robots speak and talk, and just like everything's about facts, and just what about the emotions? What about actual connection? It ain't there. It ain't there. And if that's not there, I'm not attached. There is zero attachment completely. And even when things were like, there were some serious things taking place, it's like character, it's like there's no it's like zero affect. The writing style is just tanking, and also there was no character growth. Everything was staying baseline the same, like nothing. There was nothing like this in our characters. It was like, okay, solid pass. I'm done. I'm completely done. Book 1 was pretty good. It was pretty solid. It kept me, but after that, it was just like, wow, there's nothing happening anymore. It's just like, no. All right, y'all, that is it for the month of May. Let me know down in the comments below if you have read any of these books, what your thoughts were. I would like to know. If you like this video, give me that thumbs up and smash the subscribe button down below so you don't miss out on any of my upcoming bookish content. And as always, happy reading, and I will see you in my next video. Cheers.